Despite being blinded by the bed sheet, the man easily catches Zeke's blade. He smirks. Not bad. You adapt quickly. Zeke jumps back, eyes burning with suspicion. Then, the man says something strange. You fight more like a mercenary than a knight. Zeke stiffens. A mercenary. The man smirks. You don't fight like a draker. You throw away your weapon to survive. Realization hits Zeke. This man, he knows something. And worse, he's powerful. Zeke's instincts scream at him, this guy could kill him in an instant. The only question is, why hasn't he? Then, something unexpected happens. The door slams open. Andre enters, scanning the room. His eyes immediately land on the drunkard. There you are. Zeke exhales sharply. Who the hell is this guy? And why is Andre looking for him? One thing is clear, Zeke has just crossed paths with someone very dangerous. Just as Zeke tries to make sense of the mysterious drunkard, Andre drops a bombshell. Dexter. Garden keeper of the academy. Zeke freezes. No way. The man who just effortlessly countered his attacks is the garden keeper? Dexter, unfazed, shrugs at Andre. So, how'd you find me out? Andre smirks. I saw you lurking in the training room earlier. Then, turning to Zeke, he gives a sharp order. If you're healed already, get lost. Zeke, awkwardly, begins to leave until Dexter stops him. Kid, if you want to learn something useful, come to the Western greenhouse. For a moment, silence fills the room. Zeke, arrogantly, declines and walks away. Dexter watches him leave, annoyed yet nostalgic, just like his father. Hearing this, Zeke immediately catches on. This man dared to casually mention Arthur Draker's name, the Draker Patriarch. That means only one thing. Dexter is none other than Duke Draper, the Gale Knight. A monster in human form. One of the few knights capable of using martial force. A man who single-handedly fought an entire kingdom. And then? He disappeared. Vanished after becoming the talk of the continent. And now? He's been living a quiet life as a garden keeper at the academy. Zeke processes the revelation and immediately assumes Andre is here because of Dexter. He wonders if Dexter earned the title of Duke simply through sheer tenacity. After all, rumors said the man became a Black Knight just because he was obsessed with the color black. It's hard to believe. And while Zeke knows Dexter is interested in him, he doesn't care about simple lessons. He wants something greater. If he's going to be Dexter's disciple, he won't settle for scraps. He wants the Gale Knight's strongest technique. A true trump card. Zeke grins, transforming his greed into tenacity. At the academy, Professor Phantom begins his lecture. A lesson in mana theory. The problem? Nobody cares. The entire class is asleep. Zeke, however, listens intently. When Phantom asks if anyone has questions, the room remains silent. Until, Zeke raises his hand. Professor, can you elaborate on the mana energy transfer law? For a moment, Phantom is stunned. Then, his expression shifts completely. This is the first time in ages that a student has actually asked him something. Why yes, of course. His entire demeanor changes, and he passionately explains everything in detail. After class, the students mock the lesson, calling it a nap time. Zeke, however, sees things differently. This professor, he's sharp. He's actually good. As he prepares to leave, Phantom stops him. You, really listened? Zeke nods. Phantom, awkward yet excited, offers him a deal. If you ever have a question, come to me. I have access to a vast archive of knowledge. Zeke raises a brow. Why? Phantom scratches his head. I'm still an alumnus at Delpoa Magic University. Zeke's eyes widen. Delpoa, the birthplace of magic? He didn't expect the professor to be connected to Delpoa Magic University. Zeke accepts the offer. Having a capable mage as a potential ally is never a bad thing. After all, mages who understand math tend to be the best strategists. Better to have a scholar than a stuffy knight. As soon as Zeke exits the academy, he spots Dexter. The man's arms are crossed, his foot tapping impatiently. Finally. Took you long enough. Before Zeke can say anything, Dexter cuts him off. Why didn't you show up to the greenhouse? Dexter grins. I got tired of waiting. For a whole week? You're lucky I waited that long. Zeke remains calm. I told you, I'm not interested. Dexter's eye twitches. The man-child act kicks in. You really think I'm just some ordinary gardener? Zeke, deadpan, replies, no. That's why I'm avoiding you. Dexter stops. For a brief moment, he actually looks impressed. Then, in the blink of an eye, he vanishes. Before Zeke can react, a fist slams into his gut. Zeke slowly opens his eyes. The first thing he notices, he's already at the Western greenhouse. Zeke exhales. He now understands something crucial. Dexter Draper is a monster. If Zeke had any doubts before, they're gone now. This isn't just some annoying mentor figure. This is a man who could crush him effortlessly. And if Zeke wants to surpass him, he has to learn everything Dexter has to offer. Even if it means enduring the torment. Even if it means abandoning his own pride. Did he really just Zeke finally speaks. Dexter, fine. Standing casually nearby, Dexter smirks. Grins. Finally now awake? We're talking. Zeke the real training begins. This is kidnapping, you know. Dexter shrugs. Yup. Zeke narrows his eyes. This man doesn't even try to deny it. He's openly admitting his interest. At least he's honest about it now. Dexter's patience is non-existent, but Zeke isn't ready to deal with this. He needs to escape. Without wasting a second, Zeke activates Swift Step and dashes away, only to stop dead in his tracks as Dexter suddenly appears in front of him. What? Zeke's body reacts instantly, veering to the side for another escape attempt. But, Dexter is already there. No matter which direction Zeke runs, Dexter effortlessly keeps up. At this point, Zeke feels like a rat in a maze. He exhales sharply. Fine. He switches strategies, mockery. Why are you so obsessed with me, old man? Dexter's smile widens. That healing of yours. It's not normal. Zeke smirks. So that's it. Zeke crosses his arms. Then force the answer out of me. Dexter grins darkly. And before Zeke can blink, a sword flies toward him from behind. Clang. Zeke barely catches it in time, eyes narrowing. What's your goal here? Dexter shrugs. You're the one who challenged me first. But that seems boring. The air grows thick with tension. Dexter's eyes gleam with something dangerous. Let's make it interesting. He takes a step forward. Graze even a single thread of my clothing, and I'll grant you a wish. Zeke remains silent. Then, Dexter's expression hardens. But if you lose, his smile vanishes, replaced by something predatory. You tell me everything you're hiding. The challenge is set. And so, they fight. 3 hours pass. Dexter is impressed. Zeke doesn't just have insane stamina and endurance, he's healing and recovering endlessly. An unstoppable force. But despite his limitless energy, Zeke knows he can't win. He needs something stronger. Something he's never used before. Might of the Dragon. A skill too dangerous to use carelessly. But against a Black Knight, it should be fine. His gaze sharpens. His entire demeanor changes. Dexter, noticing the shift, grins. Finally taking this seriously? Zeke activates Swift Step, this time shrouded in a purple aura. He rushes forward. Dexter, despite Zeke's increased speed, sees through the attack. You're faster. But not fast enough. However, Dexter sees something else. Something beyond tenacity. Something beyond endurance. That look in his eyes. His spite surpasses anything Dexter has ever seen. And he loves it. Dexter grins wickedly. Alright, kid. I'll use aura. As Zeke launches forward, he activates Might of the Dragon. For a brief moment, Dexter doesn't react. Then, a sudden explosion of force. Dexter is pushed back, his blade cracking from the impact. The shock in his eyes is real. What just happened? The battlefield fills with dust as Zeke takes advantage of the cover. Dexter, hidden in the thick fog, frowns. A technique to block my vision? He doubts Zeke can track him in this mess. But, Zeke activates Dragon Eyes. And with perfect clarity, he finds Dexter instantly. And strikes. For the first time, he lands a hit. Dexter's figure vanishes. Zeke's eyes widen in shock. What? Before he can process it, Dexter appears behind him. And with one swift motion, Zeke is completely wrecked. A draw? No. Dexter declares it as one, but the reality? Zeke was utterly outclassed. The system activates. Warning, built-up fatigue has surpassed safe limits. Forced consciousness shutdown initiated for safety. Zeke's vision darkens. His body refuses to move. And before he loses consciousness, his last thought is one of frustration. Hours later, Zeke wakes up in his own room. The Duke must have brought me here. He regrets losing. But he knows, this much was expected of a Black Knight. Even after using everything he had, he still lost. Zeke reflects. His strategy had been flawed. He had relied on the same old attack patterns, hoping to throw Dexter's guard down. But against someone like him? That was a foolish hope. Dexter wasn't just some teacher. He was one of the strongest knights alive. And if Zeke wants to surpass him, he'll need more than just endurance. He'll need technique. He'll need unpredictability. He'll need power beyond reason. Zeke grits his teeth. This isn't over. He will surpass Dexter. He will surpass everyone. He will become unstoppable. And when the time comes, he will take his rightful place at the top. Despite his best efforts, despite using both Might of the Dragon and Dragon Eyes in perfect unison, Zeke still lost. But it wasn't for nothing. He's certain, the skill Dexter used at the very end was his secret move. It was absurdly fast, honed by years of relentless training, and it allowed Andre to rise to such a high rank despite his weak stamina. Zeke regrets missing the chance to learn it firsthand. But still, he's satisfied, because Might of the Dragon worked. Even against a Black Knight, it forced hesitation. If a mere hesitation could throw off someone of Dexter's caliber, then against weaker opponents, it will be utterly devastating. And now, the system has a message for him. Zeke checks the system notifications. His Swift Step skill has leveled up. But that's not all, his soul has developed. And along with it, his system functions have expanded. Now, he has the option to unlock new features using his karma points. Among the choices, Mini-Map Inventory Quest Book. Zeke, intrigued, takes his time analyzing his options. After careful thought, he unlocks inventory first. The system explains, inventory is a subspace where items can be stored and retrieved by mere thought. He simply has to think about an item's name or shape to summon or store it. Zeke decides to test it out. He selects his claymore and enchants it. The massive blade vanishes, reappearing in the inventory window. Then, he thinks about his sword again. In an instant, the claymore appears back in his hands. His eyes widen. This isn't just storage. This is something much more powerful. Zeke recalls how, in his past life, he struggled to hide powerful artifacts. With this inventory skill, that problem is gone. Even better, he learns he can expand the storage capacity using more karma points. And this? This is just a low-rank administrator skill. If this is the lowest rank, what will I unlock at a high-rank administrator level? The thought excites him. But also, he realizes karma points are extremely precious. He can't afford to waste them carelessly. With a new plan forming, Zeke is about to strategize further, but then, Dexter arrives. Dexter stands at the door. Permission to enter? Zeke is a little surprised by the formality, but he allows him in. The butler delivers a message. A letter for you. The sender said you'd understand once I said it's from the garden keeper. Zeke's lips curl into a smirk. So, it wasn't a total waste after all. Reading the invitation, he sees Dexter's challenge. Come whenever you're ready to challenge me again. Zeke laughs to himself. He finally understands. When Dexter called it a draw before wrecking him completely, it was because he wanted this rematch. And Zeke isn't going to refuse. The butler clears his throat. One more thing, young master. I've located the blacksmith you mentioned. Zeke perks up. Galeon, what about the appointment? The butler looks awkward. It didn't go as planned. Zeke raises an eyebrow. Why? He refused. Zeke's eyes widen. What? He stopped forging weapons altogether. Zeke, frustrated but intrigued, knows he needs to speak to him directly. The next day, Zeke arrives at a familiar blacksmith shop. A shop he frequented in his past life. The sign outside? Still the same. He chuckles to himself. Still a ridiculous name. Stepping inside, he calls out. Anyone here? In his past life, Zeke had wielded a legendary blade, the Radiance of Graham, a masterpiece crafted by Galeon. The only weapon capable of replacing ether with aura. Galeon had once told him it was payment for saving his life. But that wasn't all. Galeon was no ordinary blacksmith. He was the blacksmith of the soul. A man rumored to read the very essence of a person's soul before forging a weapon perfectly tailored to them. Zeke had never been disappointed in his past life, but today? He's shocked. Because sitting in a drunken stupor is the legendary blacksmith himself. Galeon lazily turns to him. Get lost. This ain't a shop for kids. Zeke narrows his eyes. You're still as unpleasant as ever. But he wasn't expecting this. In his past life, Galeon had been different. Still rough around the edges, but never like this. Something changed. Something happened before their paths crossed in his past life. And Zeke is determined to find out what. Without hesitation, Zeke grabs a nearby bucket of water and dumps it all over Galeon's head. Splash. The blacksmith jolts awake, his drunken days shattered. Zeke smirks arrogantly. Finally awake? Galeon, soaked and stunned, blinks a few times before recognizing Zeke's face. And then, he panics. His entire body trembles, and he drops to his knees. Master Draker, please forgive my disrespect. The once proud blacksmith bows deeply, his voice filled with regret. He keeps apologizing, but soon, his words take a darker turn. I'm just a worthless blacksmith. A failure. I can't even forge the weapon I truly desire. Zeke narrows his eyes. This was unexpected. He had always known Galeon as a master craftsman, but the man never spoke of his past failures. So, even someone like him had a rough phase. Galeon spirals further into self-loathing. But Zeke? He doesn't have time for this. With a sharp glare, he snaps, enough of that. Take me to the weapons you failed to forge. Galeon, startled, hesitates, but obeys. Galeon leads Zeke to the back of the shop. The yard is filled with broken swords, discarded weapons, and shattered dreams. Apologies for the mess. Zeke shrugs. Doesn't matter. Looks cool. Galeon chuckles weakly, but his eyes are still filled with doubt. These are my failures. Zeke browses the weapons, examining them closely. That's when his dragon eyes activate. And instantly, he sees the truth. Zeke runs his fingers along one of the blades, feeling its structure. Galeon watches as Zeke suddenly snaps a sword in half with minimal effort. What? Zeke shakes his head. The durability is pathetic. Galeon grits his teeth. Zeke continues, pointing out the real issue. The impurities weren't properly removed. You mix multiple metals to create a lighter yet stronger alloy, but the smelting process is flawed. Galeon's jaw drops. How did you? Zeke crosses his arms. You have a problem with your brazier, don't you? Galeon stares in shock. You saw all of that just by looking at my swords? Galeon, now bursting with realization, suddenly grabs Zeke's arm. Come inside. I have something to show you. Zeke follows him back into the shop, where Galeon pulls out a blueprint. The moment Zeke sees it, he recognizes it instantly. This is the magic brazier, a legendary forging tool. A blueprint Galeon had revealed to Zeke in his past life. Zeke remembers, Galeon had never hidden it from him. He had freely shared it, as thanks for saving his life. And now, he was doing the same. With this, your smelting method will be flawless. Galeon nods. That's exactly what I thought. Zeke narrows his eyes. Then why haven't you built it? Galeon sighs heavily. Because I'm missing the most important part. Galeon reveals the real problem. The magic tower charges 10,000 gold coins for the necessary enchantments. Zeke's eyes widen. 10,000? Even a noble family barely spends 10 gold a month. That's ridiculous. And suddenly, Zeke understands. This is why it took Galeon 10 years to become successful in his past life. He had to struggle, piece by piece, to earn that insane amount of money. No wonder he was drowning himself in alcohol. Galeon looks at Zeke seriously. I know this sounds absurd, but you're a Draker, a pure blood awakener. You have influence. If you can get me that brazier, his voice shakes with desperation. I will forge anything you need, free of charge. For as long as I live. Zeke leans back, deep in thought. Even as a pure blood awakener, he can't gather that much money. But, he doesn't need to. Because this problem isn't about money, it's about mana energy laws. And he knows just the person to help. Professor Phantom. Zeke smirks. Alright. I'll handle it. Galeon looks at him in disbelief. You will? Yeah. I know a mage who might be able to help. If it works, I'll let you know. Galeon is still in shock. Then, he drops to his knees. His eyes fill with tears. Master Draker. If this works, I will serve you for life. He grabs Zeke's leg, sobbing uncontrollably. Zeke rolls his eyes. Enough with the dramatics. Just stop drinking. Galeon nods furiously. Yes, I promise. Zeke turns to leave. As he steps outside, he thinks to himself, if I pull this off, I won't just get a new sword. I'll gain an unbreakable bond with the greatest blacksmith on the continent. This is worth it. With a new plan in motion, Zeke sets off, ready to secure his next major power-up. Zeke leaves Galeon's workshop, still absorbed in thought. As he makes his way to the Draper Academy's research building, he grumbles to himself, why the hell does the Mage Tower charge 10,000 gold for something this simple? It doesn't make sense. The task itself seems easy. Then, he recalls something. Phantom's major was related to this. If anyone can help, it's him. As Zeke tries to remember the location of the professor's research lab, a commotion in the alley catches his eye. A group of bullies is beating a helpless kid into the ground. The victim sobs, apologizing through his tears. Zeke pauses. This is familiar. Too familiar, because in his past life, he had been that kid. His fists clench in frustration. He can't ignore it. Zeke turns into the alley. You're complete trash. Leon, the same bastard Zeke humiliated earlier, is taking his anger out on someone weaker. He stomps the poor kid's head into the dirt. I didn't lose to that inferior bastard. His voice shakes with frustration. Leon still refuses to accept his defeat. It was a surprise attack. Pure luck. Zeke has no right to be called a pure-blood awakener. Then, Zeke speaks. On your knees. Zeke's voice is calm, but icy cold. If you value your life, kneel. Leon's expression twists. Why you? He tries to act tough, but something inside him shatters. A cold, primal fear creeps into his bones. Why? Why do I feel like this? Leon remembers the old Zeke. Insignificant. Pathetic. Weak. But the person standing before him now? He's a monster. Leon grits his teeth, furious. You're still an inferior weakling. Attack him. Now. His goons rush forward. Zeke doesn't move. A punch flies toward him. Zeke dodges. Effortlessly. One strike, the first thud crumples. Another strike, the second is launched backward. Zeke catches one mid-air, twists his body, and throws him into the others. In seconds, they're all down. Leon, watching the disaster unfold, starts sweating profusely. Zeke walks up to Leon. A chilling smile forms on his face. Don't worry, it'll only hurt for a second. Leon, terrified, unsheathes his sword. Don't come any closer. I'll cut you. Zeke's eyes narrow. You dare pull a weapon outside the training grounds? Leon freezes. He knows the rules. If he draws his sword first, then he bears full responsibility for whatever happens next. Zeke slowly draws his own sword. You made your choice. This battle only ends when one of us dies. Zeke turns to one of the beaten thugs. Liam. You're the witness. The moment Zeke takes a step forward, Leon's will crumbles. He throws away his sword. Please, stop. I'm sorry. He falls to his knees, trembling. Zeke remembers his past life. How the same coward never apologized. How he only begged when things turned against him. Zeke's expression turns cold. Trash like you doesn't deserve mercy. And in a flash, Leon's ear is sliced clean off. Leon screams. Blood drips from the side of his head. Zeke leans in. His voice is low. Deadly. Never attach it back. If I ever see you again, you'll lose your head next. Leon, still clutching his bleeding ear, nods frantically. Zeke turns away. The beaten victim, Liam, looks at him in confusion. Why did you save me? Zeke pauses. Then he shrugs. I wasn't helping you. I was helping myself. And with that, he leaves. Finally, Zeke locates the professor's lab. Professor Phantom. Phantom glances up. Oh, it's you, Zeke. What brings you here? Zeke gets straight to the point. Can you make this? He hands over the magic brazier blueprint. Phantom inspects it. Then, he gives a straight answer. Yes, it's possible. Zeke relaxes. Good, then I'll leave it to you. Phantom raises a hand. Not so fast. Zeke frowns. Phantom explains, the overall composition isn't difficult but the real problem is the core. The core is the heart of the brazier. It needs an enormous amount of energy, and it must be precisely controlled. Zeke nods slowly. Is there a way to make it? Phantom sighs. There are two options. 1. Modify the design to work with a weaker core. Oh, but this would take 10 to 15 years to develop. Zeke grimaces. That's ridiculous. What's the second option? Phantom pauses, thinking. Then, he leans forward. The second option is much harder, but it won't take 15 years. Zeke crosses his arms. I'm listening. Phantom smirks. We need to steal a functioning core from somewhere else. Zeke stares at Phantom, stunned. Did you just say a high-compression mana stone? The professor nods. Indeed, if we use it, we won't need to modify the brazier's core. But finding one, that's another issue entirely. Zeke grits his teeth. A high-compression mana stone, an ancient relic, impossible to replicate even with modern magic and technology. Zeke immediately knows the problem. These stones aren't just rare. They're practically extinct. Phantom folds his arms. If we try to purchase one, it will cost at least 3,000 gold coins. Zeke rubs his temples. 3,000? That's robbery. He's already barely holding on to his deception. Everyone assumes he's an aura user because of the blessing right spectacle. But in reality, it was a lie. A fake reaction, crafted using his ether and healing abilities. No matter how much effort he puts in, he still can't use aura. Without it, he can't wield sword skills like other knights. The only sword technique he can use is Spirit of the Soul, and even that just allows him to reinforce his sword, nothing more. Compared to ether, aura is much easier to use. And yet, he can't wield it. That's why he needs Graham, the Sword of Radiance. If he can get his hands on it, he can bypass this limitation. But first, he needs a high-compression mana stone. Phantom examines the blueprint, impressed. Whoever designed this was a genius. Even among relics from the Golden Age, it's rare to find something this efficient. Zeke listens carefully. Then, an idea sparks. He suddenly stands up. Phantom raises an eyebrow. Where are you going? Zeke grins. To get one. Phantom blinks. You're joking. Zeke shrugs. I know where to find one. Phantom looks at him in disbelief. You're serious? Zeke smirks. Dead serious. Centuries ago, humanity waged the Liberation War. They fought for freedom, struggling under the rule of dragons. The war ended when Bahamut, the evil dragon, fell at the hands of Terracon Draker. With his death, peace lasted for a century. But in that time, relics from the Age of Heroes were unearthed. Among them, the high-compression mana stone. An artifact from the Hero King's prime. A relic strong enough to power an entire village. Zeke knows where to find it. And if his memory is correct, it's still undiscovered. Zeke heads straight to the Draper Academy's central library. Most people don't use it anymore. But the library remains, because people believe Terracon Draker himself founded it. Decades ago, during renovations, several ancient relics were found beneath it. The Magic Tower and the Archmage of Nirvana rushed to investigate. 4 months, relics from the Heroes era surfaced. Zeke remembers this from his past life. But, right now, those relics haven't been found yet. Which means, they're still there. Zeke steps inside the library. He knows he won't find the relics just by searching normally. So, he activates Dragon Eyes. His vision sharpens, scanning the entire library for any anomalies. Then, he spots it. A single tile, slightly different from the rest. Zeke taps it. Nothing. Just a normal tile. But, he remembers something. His master once taught him that ether can be materialized. By imbuing ether with the property of cutting, he should be able to pass through barriers. Zeke activates Soul of the Spirit. His body trembles as his ether flares up. Then, he steps forward, and phases through the tile. Zeke lands inside a deep cavern. Damn, it's deeper than I thought. He lights a small fire, illuminating the darkness. In his past life, the news had said the ruins were discovered a decade later. But as he explores, something is off. Because in the distance, he hears voices. Zeke narrows his eyes. This place was supposed to be untouched. But, someone's already been digging. He moves forward cautiously, peeking around the corner. And what he sees sends a chill down his spine. A group of skeletal figures, holding pickaxes and shovels. What the hell? The undead are excavating the ruins. Zeke's mind races. This wasn't supposed to happen. He activated his dragon eye, scanning the skeletal figures to ensure they weren't creations of a lich. Once confirmed, he swiftly enabled critical strike, wasting no time as he lunged forward to obliterate them. The system chimed, rewarding him with 2 karma points for the kill. A smirk stretched across his face. He had been so focused on securing the artifact that he had completely overlooked the karma points. His eyes gleamed with a wicked glint. This was the perfect opportunity to farm points. With renewed fervor, he pushed ahead, ruthlessly annihilating 20 more skeletons, each strike more efficient than the last. As the dust settled, the system interface materialized before him, displaying all the options he could purchase. His gaze flickered over the choices. Most were far beyond his reach, save for one, a minimap. He wasted no time, immediately acquiring it. The interface shifted, revealing a detailed grid of his current location. It bore a striking resemblance to a magical map, yet it was far more intricate. Suddenly, something caught his eye, a single room, distinct from the rest, marked in a different hue. A sharp realization hit him. This was the storage room, the same one that had taken an entire search party multiple days to locate in his past life. And yet, with this newfound ability, he had discovered it in mere moments. The system provided him with an optimal route, one so precise it felt almost unbelievable. Nonetheless, he followed it without hesitation, weaving effortlessly through the ruins until he reached his destination. Before him stood a massive door, ancient and foreboding. He reached out, pressing his palm against its cold surface, but a powerful magical force repelled him. A sharp sting burned across his hand, his glove charred from the contact. His mind raced. This was no ordinary door. If even the Archmage of Nirvana and the Magic Tower had been involved, then the sealing magic on this entrance was on an entirely different level. Doubt crept into his thoughts. Was there any way to bypass this? With no other option, he turned to the system for guidance. His request prompted the interface to connect with the security device, attempting to override the restrictions. A long pause. Then, failure. Instead, the system activated its manual override mode. A flicker of shock crossed his face. Did the system just respond to him? Zeke gets shocked and asks to confirm if it really just replied back. The system answers positively, which leaves him stunned. He decides to use it and demands an answer for why he got regressed. The system has nothing to say, so he questions the administrator system. The system has no answer again, so he throws another question and asks who developed the system. He gets no answer once more, so he becomes frustrated and gives up. His voice rang out with firm resolve. Open the door. The system acknowledged his command, and with a low rumble, the Dragonslayer's storage room unlocked before him. As he stepped inside, his breath caught. Chests. Dozens of them. Just as he remembered from his past life, the room was overflowing with treasures and relics of unimaginable value. Finding even a single one of these in ruins was akin to a miracle, yet here he stood, surrounded by them. He rummaged through the chests, his dragon eye analyzing each artifact until he found them, compression mana stones. 4 of them. A satisfied grin spread across his face. Jackpot. Wasting no time, he expanded his inventory, consuming a karma point in the process, and stored one of the stones. The rest would have to wait, he'd return when he was strong enough to claim everything. Just as he was about to leave, an ominous sensation crawled up his spine. His instincts screamed at him. He spun around. Magic circles, dozens of them, glowing, pulsating. Before he could react, a powerful force engulfed him, and his vision blurred as he was teleported away. To be continued. This is it for today's episode. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. See you in the next episode, stay tuned.